Hello. So, Dr. Irma, you can let Dr. Spencer know these cupcakes are delicious. So, when you eat a cupcake, you think, oh, I just ate a cupcake. That's it. But we're going to get into what actually happens in your body as that cupcake goes down your system. And that's called cellular respiration. So, my name is Deontay, and I'm going to get into what cellular respiration is. So, of course, the first question you're going to ask is, what is cellular respiration? What are you talking about? All right, so what is cellular respiration? So cellular respiration is what cells do to break up sugars to get energy they can use. This happens in all forms of life. Cellular respiration takes in food, and I just ate the cupcake, and they're going to use that to create energy. So when you see a bunch of kids eating a whole lot of candy and sugar and you see them jumping around and everything, that is because of cellular respiration. um, so what it does is it uses to create ATP. And of course, everyone knows ATP is a chemical they uses for energy. Because you hear ATP, first thing you think is energy. So usually this process uses oxygen, which is called aerobic respiration. So now I probably lost you again. So let's get into that. What is aerobic respiration? So aerobic respiration is which is used in cellular respiration and not anaerobic, because aerobic is in the presence of oxygen and anaerobic isn't. So of course, in order to eat, you're going to need some oxygen, or otherwise you may suffocate because you have to breathe. So aerobic uses the end product of glycolysis, which is the breakdown of sugars, in the TCA cycle to produce much more energy, currency in the form of ATP that can be obtained from any anaerobic pathway. Aerobic respiration is a characteristic of eukaryotic cells when they have sufficient oxygen. Most of it takes place in the mitochondria. So anaerobic respiration, which can take place without the presence of oxygen. And that's not what we're going to discuss today. That's why there's more information on aerobic, because that's the one we want to focus on, because that is cellular respiration. Okay, so this is just a visual, just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about in that big orange thing right there. That is the mitochondria, and we're going to get into that as well. Also glycolysis, which is the breakdown of sugar to ATP. And as you can see, you need that oxygen to move between the glycolysis to the mitochondria, which is going to produce, it's going to cycle and factor in all of that sugar, and it's going to bring out oxygen. As you can see, the ATP is coming out, also the carbon dioxide, because when you bring in oxygen, carbon dioxide comes out. So that is what we're going to get into. All right, so photosynthesis. Of course, photosynthesis is going to play a part in cellular respiration, because it is the process by which, like I just said, carbon dioxide and hydrogen and H2O are used to make sugars and starches. So in the first stage of cellular respiration, sugar is broken down to carbon dioxide and water, basically. And in the process, ATP is made that can be used for cellular work. And right here, I have the formula that is used for that to create ATP. And then to the right, I have a visual of the 4 stages that we're going to be going through to get through cellular respiration. And I'm going to further break down what actually happens in cellular respiration. So photosynthesis cells can make sugar using photosynthesis. All cells need to be able to break down sugars they can take in from their environment and turn it into energy to be used for cellular work. All right, so the 4 stages of cellular respiration. So, all right, let's get into that. Okay, so cellular respiration. During cellular respiration, I'm just going to kind of get into a few things first before I get into the breakdown of the 4 stages. So as I already said about photosynthesis and everything like that, so the process by which, of course, carbon dioxide are used in immunosources. So the overall reaction for cellular respiration, okay, so essentially sugar is burned or oxidized down to carbon dioxide and H2O, releasing energy, which is ATP, in the process. So why do cells need ATP? All cellular work, all the activities of life requires energy, either from ATP or from related molecules. A lot of oxygen is required for this process. So the sugar and oxygen are delivered to your cells via your bloodstream. So this process occurs partially in the cytoplasm, and partially in the mitochondria, and that's the main one we're kind of focusing on because that's where all the interchanges happen in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria is another organelle in the eukaryotic cells. Like the chloroplast, the mitochondria has two lipid bilayers around it, and its own genome, indicating that it may be the result of endosymbiosis long ago. And that's something we're not going to get into right now. So in some ways similar to the chloroplast, the mitochondria also has two main sites for reactions, which is the matrix, a liquidy part of the mitochondria, and the cristae, the folded membranes in the mitochondria. So let's get into it. So, all right, let's go to the, all right, I'm sorry, this kind of went a little too fast. Okay, so glycolysis, which is the splitting of sugars, this happens in the cytoplasm. So the first step is breaking down the glucose to extract energy for cellular metabolism. So glycolysis consists of an energy requiring phase followed by an energy releasing phase. So you're going to need that you're going to need that energy to come in order to release. So one glucose is broken down to 2 molecules of pyruvic acid, resulting in the production of 2 ATPs for every glucose. So for every glucose, you're releasing 2 energies. And then I also have the formula for that as well, which is C6H12O6. Okay, so stage 2 is the transition reaction. Pyruvic acid is shuttled into the mitochondria where it is conveyed to a molecule called acetyl-coenzyme A for further breakdown. So the transition reaction is a transition between glycolysis and the citric acid cycle. The transition reaction converts pyruvate 3 carbons to acetyl-coenzyme A, which is going to give you 2 carbons. And it produces carbon dioxide and NADH. So that stage is very important because that's how we're going to get from glycolysis to the Krebs cycle. And that's what we're going to get into next, the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle is a sequence of reaction by which most living cells generate energy during the process of aerobic respiration. It takes place in the mitochondria, consuming that oxygen, producing carbon dioxide and water as waste products, and converting ADP to energy-rich ACP. So it's just a whole lot of interchanging. So what's coming in is switching up and producing energy coming out. So the last stage is the electron transport chain of chemoosmosis, the big ATP payoff. So the big ending. So it occurs in the cristae of the mitochondria, as we mentioned before, which are the folded membranes inside of the chloroplast. So the electrons from hydrogen are carried by the NADH that came from the transition, and passed down an electron transport chain to result in the production of ATP, which results in the production of 32 ATPs for every glucose. So that is a lot of energy. So that one piece of cake you ate just broke down into a lot of energy. So I'm pumped up right now on ATP. All right. So that is basically the main function of cellular respiration. And I just kind of broke down, I just kind of focused on the cellular respiration, but there's so much that goes into eating a cupcake. So in conclusion, we tend to associate the term respiration with breathing in the lungs, but today we also talked about cellular respiration. What's the connection, you ask? Well, I kind of mentioned it a couple times, but in short, the function of the lungs is to pull in the oxygen our mitochondria needs to burn sugar and remove that carbon dioxide our mitochondria generates after breaking that sugar down. We can't burn sugar well without oxygen, and we can't get oxygen to all our cells without our lungs, our blood cells, which carry oxygen, and our heart. So our body kind of functions a lot. It moves a lot. So just eating that one piece of sugar, your body is working overtime. But in the end, you end up with 32 of ATP, a whole lot of energy. And that is the result of cellular respiration. And thank you. That's it.